Many correlations can be made between the Occupy Wall Street movement and the African National Congress movement led by Nelson Mandela. Although ranging from different levels of impact and magnitude, there are many similarities within both political movements. In a 2011 article by The Nation magazine, written by Naomi Klein, Occupy Wall Street, the most important thing in the world now, she addresses the causes of the economical and financial crisis that arose as large gathering of protesters from all backgrounds of life exposing the deception of America, addressing the issue of the 99% versus the 1%. In spite of the strenuous circumstances, the Occupy Wall Street movement was a non-violent one, displaying civil disobedience and resistance with respect and honor. In response to this article, I say I am the 99%, referred to as the minority. How can a nation be overpopulated with minorities and still be labeled that? How many millions of minorities must exist before we begin to erase this horrific term? Without the term, those in power have nothing to cling onto. Minorities are already being exploited. Therefore, the word minority is a pejorative that exists to make minorities feel inferior and make them feel superior. The irony is the minority is the majority. The beauty that arose from the Occupy Wall Street movement was that it brought whites, African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, and other ethnic groups together. It made non-minorities understand what it is like to be a minority. Those who truly wanted change welcomed the resistance against the oppression of the American government, disregarding race, creed, or ethnicity. In the most important thing in the world now, Klein elaborates on how corporations have gained more political control than the governments themselves. The government policies of this country allowed for the wealthiest corporations to excessively consume natural resources across the world. Klein states, I am talking about changing the underlying values that govern our society. There was exploitation not only of the people, but also the earth and its environment. Naomi Klein states, we are overfishing our oceans, polluting our water, with fracking and deep water drilling turning to the dirtiest forms of energy on the planet. The earth is responding to the abuse it has had to endure by exploding with vast hurricanes, tornadoes, and tsunamis in cities, towns, and countries which had never witnessed it before. Capitalism has produced excessive pollution, which has destroyed many habitats, allowing for the reemergence of diseases such as the Nile virus and malaria. This has been displayed recently in Africa with the reemergence of the Ebola virus. Prior to the Occupy Wall Street movement, another movement that made the headlines was the 1961 South African National Congress movement against the apartheid led by Nelson Mandela. He planned a revolution for equality among South African minorities. Mandela states, the lack of human dignity experienced by Africans is the direct result of the policy of white supremacy. Again, South Africans were being exploited. Poverty produced a domino effect. Children in poverty roamed the streets because they could not afford to go to school, or parents were not present in their lives. This led to frustration and violence. Violence then spread from small towns into the suburbs. Africans wanted to be paid a living wage. In today's society in America, Americans want to raise the minimum wage to at least $10 an hour. Considering the cost of living, no person could survive on their own by making only $7.25 an hour. In I Am Prepared to Die speech, Nelson Mandela states, Africans want to perform work which they are capable of doing and not work which offered little pay. They do not want to be confined to live in poor neighborhoods. Poverty-ridden neighborhoods in America are filled with minorities who cannot work in places they choose to. South Africa is rich in natural resources, such as titanium, iron, cobalt, uranium, copper, silver, and gold, but because of uneven distribution, it is still a poor country. Whites enjoy high socioeconomic standing, while Africans live in poverty. Although not a third world country, the US has failed at evenly distributing the wealth. Ever since the economic crash of the stock market in 2008 to 2009 due to government bailouts, Americans have been looking for jobs. They are tired of having their jobs shipped overseas. According to a 2013 report by the US Census Bureau, out of nearly 320 million people living in the US, about 50 million Americans live in poverty. According to the Labor Statistics Bureau, as of March 2015, the nation's capital of DC has the highest unemployment rate of 7.7%. In Mississippi, nearly 50% of its population lives in poverty. In McAllen and Brownsville, Texas, the unemployment rate is about 13%, yet we are being told the economy has recovered. Minorities are tired of being treated like second-class citizens. For instance, the many riots that have been in the news, including Baltimore riots and Ferguson. Certainly, South Africans have suffered at a much larger scale. However, injustices and corruption do exist in America. Crime rate and poverty are still a plague in cities such as Chicago, Detroit, and Houston. Johannesburg in South Africa is comparable to New York City. On one end, there is Soho, where many wealthy people frequent, while the other sector can barely afford a living, where tourists stop by, but dozens of homeless people are hanging around the streets and are in the subways. In I Am Prepared to Die, Nelson Mandela states, I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together, in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for, but if it needs to be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. From prisoner to president, Nelson Mandela won the Nobel Peace Prize for showing resistance against the apartheid that was oppressing minorities in South Africa. In spite of Nelson Mandela's efforts, poverty is still an issue in South Africa. Meanwhile, in America, the Occupy Wall Street movement highlighted the economical gap between the rich and poor, yet poverty remains a growing trend in the United States of America.